And finally, as the wait continues to find out if Governor Ferguson is going to opt Washington into a federal education tax credit, more and more other states across the country are opting in. This is where you get a $1,700 tax credit on your federal income tax return, and then can direct that money then to education priorities in the state of your choosing. Anything in K through 12. You can opt into putting your $1,700, say, towards tutoring. Say you want to put it, you've got, your child went to a particular private school or public school or particular extracurricular program that you believe a lot in, you can direct the money there. It's completely up to the taxpayer who gets the credit on their income tax, the federal income tax return, and then can direct the money. The issue is Governor Ferguson has to opt us into that program. So Vicki Murray is Washington Policy Center's Education Center Director. She has some very strong feelings about this program.
When you hear scholarship, you think, oh, private school. No, it's for public district and public charter schools for every regular sort of K-12 education expense you could imagine: transportation, supplies, computers, special education, therapies, tutoring, uniforms if you have uniforms. So all of those sorts of expenses, these scholarships would cover. And here's the great news for Washington taxpayers. For every federal taxpayer here in Washington, you make a donation of up to $1,700, you will get a dollar for dollar credit, not a deduction, a dollar for dollar credit off your federal income tax bill, just for making donations to nonprofits that raise money for these K-12 expense scholarships. So imagine if you're a charter school consortium, the State Board for Charter Schools. Wouldn't it be wonderful to set up your own scholarship granting organization, nonprofit, and fundraise and help pay for these sorts of things? And you don't have to be held hostage, by Olympia to do it. If just 30% of us Washington federal income taxpayers participate in the program, that's over $700 million annually for our schools and students here in Washington. If Governor Ferguson does not opt us in, though, guess where that money's going? It's going to go to Idaho. It's going to go to Montana. It's going to go to Wyoming. We could send it to Mississippi. They're doing amazing things. We could send it to Kentucky. We could send it to any of those 30 states and growing that are participating in the program.
So you heard Murray with Washington Policy Center say, again, it's more than $700 million in education funding, potential of that for the state of Washington. But Governor Ferguson, at this point, hasn't opted us in. So then what would happen is you can still get the $1,700, as she mentioned, the $1,700, credit deduction on your federal income tax. But then other states that have opted into this program, not Washington, are going to be the beneficiaries of that. Governor Ferguson has until January 1st to make a decision. Today, for the, I don't know how many times, I reached out again to the office of Governor Ferguson and asked, have you made a decision? What's weighing into your decision? When will you? What are your holdups on opting us in? And I received no response from his office today. But back in January, Representative Michael Keaton offered a House joint memorial urging majority Democrats during the session to support the federal tax credit for education. And at the time, it came up in a media veil where I asked Representative Monica Stonier, are you going to chat with Rep. Keaton? She sits on top of a committee that he's in that would have considered this House joint memorial. At the time, she said, I don't think that we're probably going to get to it. In fact, I want to read you her quote because she said, a measure like this doesn't have a lot of impact policy-wise or provide much direction. We call them letters to Santa Claus, referring to the fact that House joint memorials sometimes do, often don't get a lot of attention. It's kind of seen as a last-ditch effort. If you know your bill is not going to get the attention of a committee chair, maybe you offer this up in hopes of saying, pretty please, can we consider this? It was not considered. And in that same media veil, I asked Senator Jamie Peterson, sponsor of the income tax, why aren't we getting in on this? And I suggested to him, well, it's not just public schools aren't just going to get all their money yanked from them. In fact, many people might decide, well, I love my local public school. I want my tax credit to go there, or I want it to go to tutors for those kids, or a particular program, or charter schools, or transportation, or school uniforms. It's really anything. And he pushed back, and Senator Peterson said, no, this is a giant diversion of resources out of the public schools. Based on how I've read how the system works, that's an inaccurate statement that he made. But I guess that's, remains to be seen whether or not the governor's going to opt us in. You'll still have the opportunity to direct those tax dollars, even into other states. You can say, I want my money to go to, whichever thus and such state, or programs in other states that have opted in. But boy, wouldn't it be great to have those dollars stay here in Washington? All right, that is it for this Friday episode of Washington in Focus Daily. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. We're going to be watching through the weekend to see if Governor Ferguson signs that income tax bill into law. As soon as he does, I'm guessing shortly thereafter, we're going to have a legal challenge announced where that's coming from. It's going to be interesting to wait and watch. And I promise we're staying as much on top of it as we can. I hope you have a great weekend.